Don't fall off, Lee. Is everybody all right? Everybody here is at the back okay? Tell us a no. Can everybody here is at the back okay? Good, perfect. You all right, Lee?
Yes. Tell you what, there's a lot of people looking back at us. I thought this was going to be quiet.
I know. I'm slightly nervous on this one. This is going to be it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a big one. But firstly, I know Justin just touched on it, but how amazing is this?
Yeah, really, really special. Some absolutely beautiful bikes and the chance for people to get up close and personal, have a really good look around. So credit to everyone that has made this possible.
I know one man that has made this possible, and he was instrumental in this, and he's going to be our first guest as we celebrate the life of Joey, and in particular the treble that he did from the year 2000. So without further ado, let's get him up onto the stage. Everybody make some noise for Gary Dunlop. Take a seat, mate. Right, don't look that way, you're fine. Oh, you just did it. You're blooming locked. So you, before we go all the way back, you had quite a part in to play, building all this, putting the right stuff there that people wanted to see.
Yeah, well, I didn't do too much. I just supplied the stuff as such. But we just thought that it's a special year. We'll try and get as much of the original stuff for 2000 as we can. Paul and the boys done, I think everybody knows they done a magnificent job. But it's nice for us to see all that stuff because we have that stuff locked away quite often. So it's great for the family to see that stuff out in the open as well. Right,
year 2000. Prior to that, 99. So we'll go all the way back to there. We'll talk about the build-up to what was the treble. You hear, we've seen Between the Hedges, John talking about it, Michael talking about it. It's fair to say Joey was written off at that point to ever win a big bike race again. And he really struggled through that 99 season. But it seemed to all change. What I'd like to know and what we'd like to know, and go as deep as you can and as far as you're willing to go, what it was like in the house and what Joey was like preparing for the 2000 season, because he came out, and I'll let you tell the story, but he came out fighting.
Yeah, well, 1999 itself, he actually rid pretty well, and everybody thinks he got fit for the 2000 season, but that wasn't true. It was after the 98 season, he was a bit dejected. Personally, he had a lot of stuff going on at home as well that people probably doesn't know about. And I think he wanted one final push. 99, he actually rid brilliant here in 1999. Nearly won the first Superbike, which was the Formula 1. And he, bar a tyre problem, he probably would have won the senior. And people maybe overlooks that. He had trouble with the 125, but he ended up setting the fastest lap as soon as he pulled in and sorted it out. 250 the whole year, he couldn't get it going. But it all started in 99. He was as fit as a fiddle. He had these massive win at the Ulster Grand Prix. He won a lot of Superbike races through the year, short circuits and roads back at home. So it started back then. He was really driven for it, and he knew he could do it. I'm not sure, maybe too many other people thought he could do it as well. And that's what, personally, I think spurred him on.
Yeah, would you say, obviously, as me as a kid, when you mentioned there the Ulster Grand Prix, possibly other people didn't expect that to happen, but you inside the smaller circles of knowing how he was riding and the feeling he had on the bike to go there and what he did to David Jeffries at the Ulster Grand Prix. I remember being there as a kid and thinking it was unbelievable. Being from Northern Ireland, all we wanted was people from home to win races. No disrespect to anyone else out there, but that's what we wanted, and for him to do it that day. So we sort of proved the point to everyone else, even though he knew himself.
It got pretty hot and heavy that day, actually. It was something that sort of simmered in the background because everybody did keep digging at him and saying he was done, and he didn't say too much, but he was a funny character. We could have went to some races back at home, and if we went in the morning and he was speaking and he was chatting away, we literally knew he was just going to mess about and just tour around and enjoy himself. It was a bit worrying whenever we started going to some of the races and we could maybe have drove 3 hours and not a word said. but see, whenever he was in that mood, we knew, yeah, something was going to happen.
So then, moving on to the TT in 2000, the story again. I'll just refer back to the Between the Hedges episode. If you've not seen it, go and watch it because it is phenomenal. But John talks there, Michael talks there about his issues that he had with the Fireblade, and it shows you what the testament to the man that Honda supplied what they supplied in the house. What goes on? What kind of conversations are being had when he finds out that he's got this Fireblade, uncompetitive, and he wants more?
I remember the day he actually got the Fireblade at Achidue, close to the club. I remember because my little brother doesn't go to races, not interested whatsoever, but he tagged along that day, and he slid off the 125 race, and my wee brother, he was head in hands and was really worried, and my dad was came in and was laughing at him and telling him to buck his ideas up. But he got out in the Fireblade and he was pretty excited because everybody knew the R1 was the bike to have, and the Fireblade was Honda's competition for it. But first time out, he came in, and I've never seen him as dejected. He was actually smiling, just sitting smiling, but it was a dejected smile. He knew there and then that the bike wasn't good enough. So after that there, my mum was actually doing part-time manager for him, and they knew that something big had to happen. So it was quite rare because my mum phoned Robert and says to Robert, look, Joey needs to do something here. He really wants to win a big race, and we need you to step in here and sort of manage him a bit and make sure he's getting the right stuff. So fair play to Robert. He done some job, and Honda stood up as well, because even whenever they did get the SP1, it still wasn't great. The Northwest, they were an absolute animal. They were horrible handling things. They weren't that particularly quick. They were heavy. They weren't nice to ride, but from the Northwest to the TT, Honda stepped up again, particularly Bob McMillan, and got a pretty special engine.
So just jumping back into that, when the likes of your mum called Robert, and what would the next conversation have been? Would that have been straight with Rob Mack, or was that straight to Honda, the factory, Japanese? How did we obviously knew your dad had an amazing connection with Honda, but did Robert have that power as well to be able to make them conversations, or was it off the back of he was calling on your dad's behalf, or how did that all work?
It was quite strange because although Robert and my dad was brothers, they weren't that unbelievably close. But you could see that Robert wanted. He knew that my dad was in form. He had been riding well, and fair play to Robert. He just rolled his sleeves up and he made sure he got in touch with Bob Mack, and everybody ended up pulling the same way, which was quite rare because there's a lot of people who had gave up on my dad back in the sort of early 90s, and a lot of them never ever were convinced again. And they'll probably not admit it, obviously, but he knew it himself, and he knew that he had boys that would be probably willing to put their knives in him if they got the chance. But he actually went in a test at Cadwell Park because there were still, I think, doubters saying he's not fit to do this here, he shouldn't be the boy on this bike. But I think he was surprisingly quick at Cadwell Park. And I think he surprised himself because I remember ringing him and he says, bloody hell, bit brave and well here today. And it's not often you would have heard him say that. So yeah, it was fair play to Robert. Robert done a great job that year, and Bob Mack as well.
It sounds terrible to think that anyone wouldn't believe in him for what he had done, but you have to realise what age was he at that time? Which is, do you know what I mean? It was really understandable why people would think, right, he's an elderly man compared to the likes of Dave Jeffries, John McGuinness. So I know he had the hunger, but then for them people to not disrespect him as such, but yeah, give up on a man that they thought was too old to do the job. Absolutely.
You can't fault anybody for doubting him. I would never fault anybody for doubting him because he was an old man back then. It's 48. It doesn't seem too much whenever you see John and Michael knocking about there now, but 48 back then riding a big pig like that there, it was some going. And to be fair, the circuit was a lot rougher back then as well. It's smoothened out a fair bit now, but he liked his drink, and he wasn't overly magnificently built, but he just had that in him. And as I say, He put a lot of work in at the end of '99, and well, it ended up paying its price in the long run.
So do you think Honda's involvement in it and them giving him the bike, was that more of a respect thing, just to say, it is Joey, he's won at that point 23 TTs, let's give him a good send-off almost? Or was it, this man can win?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
I still remember sitting in the garage and you could see everybody was there, and there was a lot of head scratching, there was a lot of nervous faces. I think Bob McMillan, I think Bob definitely trusted in him, always did. I think if it wasn't for Bob Mack, that he probably wouldn't have been with Honda as long as what he was. But you could see he had it in him. He was so serious. He still went for the odd beer and whatever, and took the boys even out 2000 practice week. Everybody had been working really, really hard, took them out, got them their beer, still had a bit of crack. But he definitely had that thing in him, that he was a lot more serious that year.
Yeah, so moving a bit forward on to the point of him going to the Northwest 200, obviously I think he qualified on pole, did he, for the Superbike race, but the bike was by no means stable or handling well at that point, and it's quite common even nowadays that if a bike's a little bit nervous at the Northwest, then you're really starting to panic coming to the TT. So what happened in between them? Was it the same old thing where it was a week or 2 weeks in between and Honda stepped in and brought more parts?
Yeah, he turned up, but he actually turned up at Cookstown riding the SP1, and it was horrendous weather, really, really wet, and he just read it round because it was Cookstown. Nobody wanted to see this bike going down the road, but it gave him an opportunity to get a run out on it, and he wasn't particularly impressed, but gave it the benefit of the doubt. It's wet, it's Cookstown, Northwest going to be a different ball game, TT's going to be different, but whenever it came to the Northwest, he did put it in pole, which was pretty. I still get a wee bit chuckly about it. I thought it was fantastic that he even got pole on it, but behind the scenes, no, he wasn't happy. Well, he knew that he wasn't going to be able to step it up any further. His hands were blistered to bits. He just literally couldn't hold on to it. So conversations still went on behind the scene, and they knew then that something big needed to happen between Northwest and TT.
And would Robert have been driving that again? Like, would that have still been, like you said before starting the contract, was he jumping in there and pushing these conversations? Or at that point, would your dad then have been?
No, to be fair, my dad didn't say too much. He would have privately spoke to Bob and whatever, but Robert, if you knew what Robert was like, Robert wouldn't be long of telling you. It was, if something needed said, Robert was only too happy to let it go. But he couldn't have got anybody better than Robert in that situation that year. He was the perfect man for the job. And as I say, everything ended up working out in the long run.
So then, fast forwarding, because I know we've got another couple of guests to get on, let's move right into the TT. Let's move to that Formula One TT. From your point of view, can you remember the vibe of the whole team, of the family? Were we heading into it thinking we were going to win it, or where were we at?
Nobody knew.
Really?
It was so nerve-wracking. Still to this day, I'm nearly nervous even thinking about it. I remember going down to the Honda garage down the road, and Simon Greer had arrived from back home. He was one of the works mechanics, and Matt Lloyd, who's still a MotoGP mechanic yet. And there was a little Japanese technician from Showa landed as well and set up his wee booth in the corner, and just typical gentleman from Japan. He just, every time anybody walked by, nodded his head. That changed after a week. The wee man looked 20 years older and had deteriorated severely. But everybody was nervous. You could feel the tension. There was a lot at stake. Honda had put in a lot, and it was starting to tell my dad as well. You could see that he knew that he needed to step up and do something.
Do you think that tension went over the period of practice week, or was that not until the race? Had they sussed the job out in practice week with the changes and stuff, or was it still going to the race to go, you're going to have to grit your teeth here, and this is a...
The bike was an absolute mess. Handle awful, and they tried absolutely everything. As I say, that's why the wee Japanese guy he was in bits. He could try no more. Yeah, he could try no more. And well, they made a like a last minute rash decision, which I'm not going to talk about. But,
We've got time. That's what we're here for.
All the time in the world, it ain't happening. But the work them boys put in was unbelievable, and it was basically the toss of a coin. It's either going to work or it's not. But even during the race itself, the bike still wasn't great. If you see the clips, you can see it's so nervous, so unstable. But it was quick. Although it wasn't Aaron Slight's #1 engine, it was still a factory SP1 engine. But yeah, it wasn't a great bike. So to be fair, the result still astounds me to this day, considering what it was.
Yeah, once again, not given to him at all. He had to work for it all the way to the end.
Yeah, and fair play to big DJ. DJ came on strong again, and I think DJ actually maybe took the lead at a stage. And I remember whenever we came in after it, some of the boys had sort of gave a wee cheeky remark and says the last lap would have been good. DJ probably had a bit in him, and my dad says, so do I. So he knew himself. He was trying to save himself for the last lap because he knew it was going to be a big one.
Yeah, and it was. And they ended up winning it, obviously. So he crosses the line. As a family, I'm sure like every other family is, regardless of whether a person finishes first or last, they're relieved. But there must have been a huge weight off of everyone's shoulders when he came up that return road.
Oh, I've never heard a feeling like it, even to this day.
Yeah.
It was like a cloud lifted over everybody, the relief. You could see everybody's shoulders popping back up again. The pressure was on so many people. And as I say, all them boys, they put their necks in the line as well. Because Yamaha were pretty dominant at that time. Honda were sending over this special bike. If you look back at it now and think, if he wouldn't have won, that was such a catastrophe for Honda. And I remember actually I never got seeing the finishing line because that time it was pretty hard to get tickets for the grandstand, and we had quite a large family. So I actually came to where this building is now and paid to get on the giant wheel to try and see him crossing the line, and I got the wrong end of the wheel.
You wouldn't.
So yeah, but I'll take that.
Right, Gary, we could sit here and listen to your conversations and your stories all day, but we will get our next guest on. So everyone make some noise for Gary Dunlop. Cheers, Gary. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. Oh. That was good, wasn't it? That was good. Right, let's get our next guest on and we'll rehash and we'll find out his views of this one. As you might see around us, all these pictures are taken by the same man. He is an amazing talent. Everyone make some noise for Stephen Davison. Got his camera in his hand, of course he has. Stephen, how are you, mate? Right, we touched on it there. You know, you're a good personal friend of the family. Let's rewind again and kind of take it on a different view. You'll have seen different things. You'll have experienced it slightly differently to Gary. So going back to the Cookstown debut on that SP1, again, Gary touched on it, but you'll have probably seen something a little different. So tell us the story, your end.
Well, I was very much in the outside looking in and trying to record it for the press. And that was a big thing. It was a really big story that this bike was coming to the Cookstown, because this bike was going to be the saviour, and it was coming to the Cookstown 100 at the first, and it was pouring all day. It rained all day. I think Joey did lead for a while one of the races, but the visor messed it up. But the other thing, I mean, it didn't. He was in really good form. Remember that it was. In the paddock, he was in the yard, the yard on the other side of the road, and he was in good heart. I remember him smiling. He had a great yellow towel around his neck. But when the thing I really remember about the Cookstown more than anything, he was racing the 250 race, and he was leading. He was leading by a good bit, and he fell off. He slipped off at the end of the Rutter road. And he got back on again, and he finished. I think he finished third in the race, but he was disqualified. And it's the only time he was ever disqualified, as far as I know, because over the winter, the MCI had brought in a new rule that if you fell off, you couldn't remount, but he didn't know that. But the thing that really angered him was that he didn't get the prize money. He didn't get any money for being on the. He would have got money for being on the podium. He was really cross about that. But he didn't get it. And, you know, I really thought that was kind of a bit of a measure of him in a way, because you think of all the podiums that he had, all the races he had won, and it still really annoyed him that he didn't get one at the Cookstown 100 on the 125. You know, so I thought that was kind of. You know, that showed how determined he was, how much he wanted to win.
Yeah, so it was really interesting listening to Gary and his inside knowledge of being in the family and stuff. But I've known you for a very long time, and I know that you take very good photographs. But I also know you're very aware of what you're taking a photograph of, whether that be the mood or the atmosphere, and all them feelings we're talking about, like building up to that year at the end of '99 at the Ulster Grand Prix. Like, I was excited there watching as a kid, but you obviously seen all that, and you've seen a load of years previous. With not saying your age or anything like that there, but you probably have a better understanding of riders' moods and feelings through your lens. So what did you see at the start of that year with that bike and his feeling building up to the 2000 TT?
Well, as you say, the coming off '99 and the win at the Ulster Grand Prix, you know, there was kind of Renaissance man. You know, he was up there. He wanted. He believed that he could still do it, and I mean, he was so disappointed in '99 when at the TT. I mean, there's a photograph of him in the winners' enclosure, and he just looks, you know, devastated that he's there, and frustrated as well. You know, that he was. Because you were like kind of pushing against something, these other bikes and stuff. But when it came to the Ulster Grand Prix, he laid it down. You know, he made. Nobody really saw that coming, and it was the 750 against the 1000cc. I mean, you have to remember as well, given his place, DJ was a newcomer, but Ian Duffus was racing there as well. He wasn't a newcomer. Yeah, you know, DJ left Dundrod without right lap record, so he was, you know, he was really going hard, and Joey still beat him. He still had, and I think that was the springboard that took it into the 2000 year, and from then on, there was just this, you know, it was all aimed at the TT, getting the TT and winning another big race at the TT.
Yeah, so 100% you will have been at Akadui when he turned up with his Fireblade, yes. And you will have taken photographs of that and seen. Yeah. What was said, or what was so bad about the bike? Or obviously we don't want to slag it off as such, but obviously clearly I've heard rumours that the bike was left in the garage with no front wheel sitting in it, and it was like there was no care for it at all. So it was at that point he decided that was not capable of doing the job. Yeah, it was complete disdain. You know, we just looked at it. I remember he came in and he got off it, and there must have been some sort of fan on it to cool it, and this thing was whirring. And he looked around, he says, "What the hell's that noise?" And looking back at it, you know, it didn't even feel like a race bike. It just looked like an ordinary road bike, and he had it on. I remember there was instead of the front wheel stand you have now, you had 3 bits of timber and a U-shape, nailed together in a U-shape, and that was to lift the front wheel off the ground. They were underneath the fork legs, and that lifted it up off the ground so they could put the tire warmers on it. But there was absolutely no way that bike was going to be raced at the TT. That wasn't going to happen. So the move started then to get something that would be competitive.
That's amazing. Like, you must know how bad that bike is, and I can say as bad as it is. I never saw it, but the fact that, you know, Joey is renowned for tinkering himself and trying to get these bikes, the best out of these bikes himself. The fact that he wouldn't even look at it and try and touch it, and even look at it and think, well, if I do X, Y, and Z, maybe we can get it to a point where it is. Straight away, he was like, no.
It just wasn't a race bike. There was nothing. It was just a road bike, really. That's how it felt. There was another thing that was different. Now, he maybe was wearing them before, but after two, I remember photographing him in the van, and he had on glasses. I had never seen him wearing glasses before, and he kept them in a safe place in the toolbox. That's where he had it. And he was reading a manual. He was reading it must have been the manual for the bike. I remember him sitting in the back of the van reading this. I could do so. It was funny. Gary was saying there earlier, about being 48, and there was this idea that he was old at 48. But if you think about it now, things have changed. The perception of that has really changed, because you think John's racing, Michael's racing, they're still here. We don't, and they're a lot older than Joey was then. Things have changed, just the way we look at that. There is no reason why 48 should have excluded him from having any success at all.
But it's amazing that he had that success over a man who was destined to be a huge success in David Jeffries. Do you think David Jeffries coming on the scene and doing what he did kind of ignited something in Joey, or was that always there? Or was it more of like this upstarts here, he's going to take over, I've got to get what I can while I still can?
He seemed to want the big bike TT one. I think that was always there. DJ was was a man mountain. He was a force of nature. The size of him and the strength of him, and he was young, and could really wrestle the bike about. He was very spectacular and all that. It was very different to the way Joey raced, and the smoothness and carrying the corner speed and all that he had, and the experience and knowledge that he had. DJ could kind of just come in and, like I say, to come to Dundrod as a newcomer and leave as the outright lap record holder. I remember the first lap he rode at Dundrod, he had the wee orange vest of a newcomer on the V&M, and there was a big heavy shower, a real Dundrod thunderstorm come out, and he was on slick tyres, and he has on a clear visor, and you can see him, looking, and he's wobbling around, and that was his very first lap. To go from there to be in to winning, he won races. He also fell off. There was a big crash as well in the 600 race up at Wheelers. He survived all of that and ended up, being the fastest man. And he was, I suppose, in a lot of ways, people probably did think that Joey couldn't beat him. He was the new man on the scene, and Joey's day was over. That's what made it so special. Yeah, for Joey to do what he did. He didn't see it that way at all. He was determined to get back here and get a big one.
So during that TT, obviously, like Lee said, you said it yourself, you're looking out inwards into this family, into this team. What did you see throughout the fortnight of that TT, or at least practice week leading up to that big bike win? Did you see his mood change? Like Lee said, did he work his way onto this bike to know how to ride it? Or did he get on it and it was a beast and horrible to ride, and it still was when he took the victory?
You could see that there was problems. I always remember the night before the race, the Friday night, he did, Manx Radio interviewed him after the practice session, and he said that they had got something sorted, that he was a lot happier with the bike. They'd made a change, which I think Gary was referring to. But
do you know what it was?
No.
we're going to have to rely on another guest.
There's always talk about tyres or something, but it certainly handled a lot better after that. But from the outside looking in, the whole thing about the 2000 TT was, there was this great sense of, a real tangible sense. You really had this feeling all the time, you were very aware of it, that it was historic. Something historic was happening, something important, something that would be, written about, talked about 25 years later. We're all gathered here talking about it, remembering it. You knew, as a photographer, press, media, you kind of had the sense of that all the time, and you were carried along on that. And it wasn't just the Formula One race. That's where it started, but. Going into the 250 race, the 125 race, it was, and then even the senior, his last lap of this course was as it was at Dundrod. His last lap at Dundrod in '99 and his last lap of the mountain course were his 2 fastest laps he'd ever rode. So he was at the top of his game, you know, at that stage, and everybody had been talking about this old man, you know.
That is really impressive, that fact. And we were talking about that earlier on. And as a racer, all you want is to keep improving. But the fact that you are still improving at 48-year-old is absolutely remarkable. So jumping back onto what Gary said about you will have taken photographs of both Robert and Joey for the majority of their career. Was it strange to you to see Robert in there and be obviously dictating to Honda and to the mechanics and stuff? And Will you have been allowed down in what they call the Honda garage and stuff to take photographs, to see the mood and all in that situation, to see whether it was expected or they were genuinely worried about all this pressure, like we said, of that bike coming over, and they needed to win, they needed to beat Yamaha?
I wouldn't have been sort of around the garage as much. We were always out on track. I remember him at Dundrod working on the RC45, for instance. He was actually working on it while Joey was racing in one of the R classes. So Robert was there, but that whole behind the scenes thing, and you know, I've heard a lot about it and different people talking about, you know, different meetings and moves that were being made and so on. But I wouldn't have been party to that then. You know, it was more recording what you could see, the things that I could see, and you know, and there was so much to. Joey was a great man to photograph. Like, it's
when you say that, you mean as in the pits or on the bike? He was.
Well, I really liked photographing him off the bike. That was one of the things, because he a lot of people think that I knew him really well. I didn't know him really well at all. Never really had a conversation with him in my life, tell you the truth. Because what was I going to talk to Joey Dunlop about? Motorbike racing, you know. So, but it was more, he had, you know, he had a real character about him, and he just went about his business. This was what made him so good to photograph. He went about doing his business regardless of everything else. You know, he never played to the camera. There was nothing like that at all. And you could get the best photographs were photographs that were candid and just as they were. If you needed him to do something, if you wanted him to do, you know, pose up for something, you asked him, it was never a problem. But I preferred not to do that. It was much more interesting to kind of be around and just watching them. Although I suppose sometimes he maybe thought he had a stalker. Just down there. It was just an interest, you know. It was just something, and he was our hero, like, as you know. Growing up, Joey Dunlop was in Northern Ireland, he was everybody's hero in motorbike racing.
So let me ask you this question before we get our next guest on. It might be a question you can easily answer or you refuse to answer it, but do you have a picture that you took of Joey that is your favourite picture of him?
And I think it was a picture that he hated the most. So there was a day in, I think it was 1994 at Corridor, and he'd been racing. It was a really warm day. It was a really hot day. And he came in, and it was really hot. And there was loads of people there, loads and loads of people outside the van. But he got onto the back of the van, and he pulled off his leathers, and somebody reached him a big mug of tea and a sandwich, and he just sat down on the wheel arch of the van and ate it and drank the tea. And I took the picture. But there was a whole crowd of people around the back of the van. I just took the picture, but I don't think he liked the picture. I don't think maybe Gary likes the picture either. But there was no harm in it, and it wasn't sneaked around. There was other people there with cameras and things as well. But I always liked that, and I loved photographing when he was working at the bikes as well. Like, I really liked that, doing that. But there was in that 2000, the year 2000 here, you just followed the whole thing the whole way through. It was just it was a journey, and you knew you were documenting history, something really special in road racing history. Mm-hmm. And it had so many had so many dimensions to it. You know, there were so many things happening because with the prize given, after the 250 race was his 25th TT win, and they give him the Sword of State that the Manx the government presented him with it, and it was David Cretney give it to him on the stage. And Jeff Cannell was doing the commentary, comparing the thing. And all of Joey's family was there. John was on the stage as well. And Jeff Cannell signalled the guy, David Cretney had the sword was on a wooden plinth. He was holding it. And Jeff Cannell signalled to him to take it off the plinth and for Joey to kneel. And it was, you know, they, what do you call it, knighted him. And they each shoulder like that, you know, and he went down. And it was just really, you know, the whole thing was just so special, Sir Joey. You know, in that moment at home, he was on the back pages, but now he was on the front pages as well. Mm-hmm. You know, that sort of picture went onto the front pages. It wasn't a racing picture. And it was that kind of thing. It was just so special to be around it. That's what I remember all the time. Well,
I think on behalf of everybody, thank you for doing what you're doing and capturing Joey the way you did, as with every rider. We'll get our next guest on, but firstly, make some noise for Stephen Davison. Stephen, thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cheers. See, this is the problem. We could sit and have everybody on for 2 or 3 hours and just sit back and listen to them, couldn't we?
Yeah, it blows my mind at the archive he must have of photographs and them moments that he captures that not everybody sees, but it's actually like raw emotion of what's happening.
Yeah, it's nothing but work for him. But then someone will look at that in 25 years' time maybe and go and see the story behind it. It's pretty amazing. Right, let's get our next guest on. Teammate to Joey, 23 times TT winner, John McGuinness, MBE. John, you all right? I should have taken a drink while I was. Right, you asked John the
I was a cycle lap.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But we're not here to talk about that. We could talk about that for the next 2 hours quite easily, but we're not. John, cast your mind back all that way. You can remember, you were an upstart, you were up and coming, and it's fair to say that Joey was not only a teammate, but clearly your hero.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was my all-time hero. First time I came here, 1982 it was, I was 10 years old, so my dad brought me across. And the first thing your dad does is stick you under the ropes at Bray Hill to watch through there, and all the bikes came down this section of the road. I was like, wow, I want to be one of them one day. But maybe it was the yellow helmet, maybe it was the number 3. I'm not so sure. Maybe he was the top man at the time, but I so followed him, and it's that was the start of the journey. Really. I remember coming in 1986. I bought then there was no digital job, so I went and bought a picture of him on the boat. By the way, I did buy it. Lee, I did buy it. I bought a picture.
No one in here believes that.
So I bought a picture on the promenade, and I went found out where he was garaging, and I went to ask him to sign it for me in 1986, and he signed it, and I said I still got the picture on the Rothmans Honda. I said I'd stand on the podium with you one day, and he just looked at me and like he just went, "Oh, fucking hey, hoy," and I never understood a word he said. And then I did it 11 years later. So 1997, we stood on the podium just behind us here. Joey won the 250 race. Ian Locker was second, I was third. And I said, I told you to stand on the podium with you. And he went something on the lines of, I said something like that. So, but yeah, I just pecked his head in after that. And I just followed him, studied him, watched him, followed in his footsteps, if you like, really. And then became his teammate in 2000.
So going back into 99 before going to 2000, obviously then when you found out that you were going to go to the TT together and stuff, honestly, did you believe that he still had the capabilities of doing that? Because I know what being your age like then, and you'd have thought, I'm going to, not being arrogant, but you'd have thought, I'm going to show him, or I want to prove to him, and all them things, albeit you had the utmost respect for him, but You were 28,
28, yeah.
28-year-old, full of testosterone and wanting to win races. So, what was the feeling like at the start of the year, and even when you got the news and stuff like that?
It was strange, but so exciting, really. And I sort of didn't see it coming at all, because it was Paul Bird, God rest him, who would run the Vimto team with James Tozer and myself on the 250s. And Joey was away with Honda give him a Fireblade that he was disgusted with. He didn't like that thing at all. I remember going in the garage and it was lent on the side of the wall on 2 jerry cans, and that was about the last time he ever went near it again. And I think, like Honda had said to Birdie, can Joey have a test on the SP1? So I remember going picking him up from the airport. He flew in to Manchester, and I picked him up in my Honda car, and we went to Darley Moor to test. And I'm just like, sort of looking across like, that's Joey Dunlop there. And I'm like, I was well happy off to Darley Moor. I get there, and it's pouring down with rain, and I remember him just fired his leathers on, flipped the yellow lid on, and off he went. He was absolutely going really, really fast in the rain. I was like, wow. And he said, yeah, we'll do the deal. And Birdie was there, and sort of no contracts or anything like that. It was a handshake with Paul, and that was it. So it happened really fast, but I never thought in wildest dreams I'd be his teammate. But when it came along, I was super excited about it. And, we did that Northwest together. And it's probably been touched on. I heard Gary on about it, that he qualified on pole, which he did, which was unbelievable, because honestly, it was the worst handling machine I'd ever sat on in my life. And I wanted to be fast, but I couldn't. I was all over the road on the thing. And I remember sat in this briefing with Joey and the team, and I said, how have you put that bike on pole position? I just could not believe it. And he just said, just fucking grit your teeth. He told me to grit my teeth. I was like, fuck. It was amazing. So, we could go on for hours about it. But, I beat him in 99 on the 250. But in 2000 on the 250, we talk about the big bike race, but he definitely turned me over in the 250 race in 2000. I didn't see which way he went.
So going from that Northwest, obviously you understood that the bike was it instability that was the main issue. Obviously we talk about it not handling well, but if it's nervous and stuff at the Northwest, it's the worst feeling in the world. You kind of been coming to the TT obviously feeling positive, or even possibly thinking of chance of winning on that bike. So what happened in between them 2 weeks that we've spoke to Gary, and even then, what happened in the week? We want to know what was changed on the bike to make the bike win. But before that,
I wish I could actually fully tell you. But I mean, he qualified on pole on the Tuesday night. On the Thursday night, it was rained off. So we went to Joey's house, and Joey said, "We'll try some suspension changes, see if we can make it any better, and I'll ride it up the road." So I don't know if you've seen the videos. Anybody's watching the videos? A little bit of a piece of him just going out onto the road. And off he went, flat out, just out of sight. Then next thing you know, the police turned up, and we were all like, oh no. And they said, Joey's just gone past doing about 150 mile an hour. We're never going to catch up with him, but just wish him all the best for the race, will you, on Saturday. So we did a few tweaks then on the Thursday. We were straight into the race. He's on the rostrum. He was, on the first race, he was in a rostrum position, and they black flagged him because the back tyre was all coming apart. Those early Dunlops used to delaminate, and all the team was worried. But I'd already actually pulled in because I couldn't hold on to this bike. I thought, this thing's horrendous, it's going to kill me. I was riding the 500 at the time. I wanted to ride the 500, not this SP1. Joey carried on, was in the rostrum position. But he just said to everybody, we've no chance on this thing. We're struggling. It hasn't got the pace. And Bob McMillan from Honda and everybody got together, and they got in touch with HRC and got the factory engine, factory swing arm, all the electronics for the bike. And I remember being in Linden Grove, which was a building at the back of the pits here, and the bike came was James Tolson's kit bike, the bike that was used at the Northwest 200, and it just appeared, and all these HRC boxes came, and all these bits came out, and they built an engine and chassis and everything for him for the TT, and a little Japanese man slept with the bike every single night. There was put a little pop-up bed by it and slept with it. And between Joey and Robert, because Robert came along to help Joey a bit, and it was amazing really, because we sat in these briefings, and I was like 28-year-old, didn't have a clue. I'm just like green, and there was all Honda bosses, the Japanese HRC technicians, Shoei technicians, and Robert would be there with that, which was that Stetson hat thing. And Joey would whisper in Robert's ear, like, and then Robert would start talking to the Japanese. He'd say something, then the Japanese would talk back to Robert, then Robert would be whispering back into Joey's ear. And they evolved the bike through the week, but honestly, I still do not know to this day how he won on it, because I thought it was still a bit of a pig of a thing. I mean, I was really struggling. I changed from Dunlop tyres to Pirelli tyres, and it changed everything for me, but Joey stayed with the Dunlops and carried on and won the race on that Saturday, which was insane.
And you're one of the few people that were sitting in them debriefs and them meetings with Honda, with the bosses and everything. And like we said to Gary about, do you believe that they thought he was capable of winning by the conversations and obviously with what Robert was doing and pushing for it and stuff? Or do you think they were just trying to do right by him, like what Chris said?
Yeah, I mean, Joey deserved that package. He definitely... when Joey spoke, he didn't speak a right lot, but when he spoke, everybody listened. He knew that in himself that he could do it, and Honda believed they could do it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought all that stuff for him. I believed he could do it. I looked at him. He's great. He's grey head. He's like little sort of fella. I remember him working on his 125 with his specs on, looking at the jets. So when all this lot was going on, Joey's actually preparing his 250 and his 125 as well, all the way through the week. So I believed him. I wanted him to win. I so wanted it. I was just learning. I didn't care where I finished, but. It was just the ultimate icing on the cake. And I remember sort of being in the background, and Gary was there, he's only a boy, Linda, all the family, Joanne, the girls, everybody were there. And it was such a special thing to be in that winner's enclosure with them. Me and Michael Rutter were there. We, like I say, both 28 years old. We're 3 days apart in age, and we're sort of looking at this old codger thinking, look, where's he just pulled that out of the bag, and stand on the podium. Was really special, never forget that. It really sort of turned my world around a lot as well. It was my first ever Superbike podium. So we believed in him, Honda believed in him, and he delivered. And I can't imagine how much pressure it must have been on the inside. I mean, you stand on that start line and, you're the factory Honda rider with all that weight of the world on your shoulders, and to come out of the traps, he proper rolled his sleeves up that day. It was a little bit damp in a few places. I remember the start of the race, and he knew where all them damp patches were. He was super, super strong in the first few laps. And, yeah, DJ was catching him a little bit, but he had his problem. But, it was really cool. I'm glad DJ brought down. I was on the podium then. Otherwise, I'd have been fourth.
Well, there you go. How much of that race did you know was going off? Did you know that Joey was out there fighting with him at the time? Or were you in your own race, concentrating on your own thing?
I could sort of feel it. When you're in the race, you can sort of feel it. Joey was aware. I never saw him at all. He was number 3, I was number 4. I knew DJ was somewhere on the line because he was number 9 and he'd caught me in the pits. But I sort of held him up a little bit down rail. I was trying to hold him up a little bit. Then I come out of Quarter Bridge and he passed me towards Braddon Bridge. But I knew that Joey was definitely in the mix with Michael, and it was just such an amazing feeling to get chaperoned into the winner's enclosure. And they did it slightly different then. They put you up on this big box thing, like your bikes would go up on this box, and everybody that was part of that journey was all the important people. Like I just spoke about Bob McMillan and all the Honda management and mechanics, and they flew some mechanics in from World Superbike and that. So there was a lot went on for that to happen, and it was really, really cool.
Was there any part of you quite jealous at any point during that week when he had the bike? No. You were happy for him?
No, I was really, really happy for him. And I'm happy they listened to him. I'm happy he delivered the result for him. I was still learning, Joey was 5 times world champion. I've never won a world championship. I've never won a race in Ireland on those short races. I've won a few TTs, but I've never won 26. He had, everybody their respect for him, and he had some power. And he used his power and he got it, and he won. And, but probably everybody was a little bit shocked, I think, but people that knew him, how determined he was when he had that race face on. He had his race face on the 250 race and all, because I was number 4 and he was number 3, and I was the British champion. I was 250 like record. And he looked over at me and I thought, oh, he means business. And I got a little bit of a look at his yellow helmet just tipping into Brannon Bridge, and I got a little look at him going up towards Glenvine, and after that, didn't see which way it went.
Like that is super impressive on its own. Like we talk about now, it's great that BSB riders come to the TT, but back then the 250 class was the best class in England. If you were winning a British Championship in 250s, well, we don't need to say this, you could ride a motorbike, and then to come here and look over at a 48-year-old man and he give you the nod, and you still had the nous to go, oh, we're in for a hard day here.
Well, I actually passed him in practice through Kerramore, and I went past him and I got quite close, and it was super disrespectful for me at the time. I sort of went, I'll give him one in practice, and as soon as I went past him, I just thought that was not the right thing to do.
Instant regret.
Instant regret. I was like, oh no. And then it was just in the back of my mind the whole of the week, and then I just knew that would have motivated him to stick it into me for sure. And I saw him after the race and said that was because I passed him in practice. And he just winked at me. I know what he meant by that, but it was just meant to be on the day. But, on his day, he was insane, unbeatable. And like I say, I really, really tried on the 250, and he smoked me that day.
Unbelievable. Right, we'll get our next guest on. John, it's been a pleasure. Everyone make some noise for John McGuinness. MBE. Thank you. Cheers, John. Cheers, John. Thank you. Cheers, mate. See the respect he's got for me now. Hey?
Well, yeah, after your sidecar lap.
Right, let's get our final guest on. Everyone make some noise for Michael Rutter. Michael, you're all right, mate. Firstly, can I say it is an absolute pleasure to see you back on the Isle of Mate.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be back. I enjoyed that lap yesterday, running around the RC45 Honda. It's really emotional, riding around with Ian Simpson as well. It was like taking us back 30 years. It's fantastic.
I bet it was, yeah. Right, we're going to take you even back for... No, we're not. We're taking you back a little less further, 25 years. My maths is terrible. You were in that fight. Let's get straight into the TT itself, the Formula One race itself. You were in that fight. You were there. Give us your views of the day running up to it, the morning of the race, getting involved in it, what you thought your plan was. Did you at any point consider Joey as a competitor to take the victory, or were you looking more elsewhere for it?
Definitely not. We had obviously had the Struggish teammate. We went to the Northwest. I got called up because Ian Simpson had a crash, so they asked me to ride the Yamaha, the V&M Yamaha. And obviously David Jeffries is his teammate, and I had a good results at the Northwest. I beat David, and I thought, right, I'm in for a win now at the TT, definitely. And I turned up here, and David just was in another class, and and Joey Dunlop we never even thought about really, because he was having massive problems in practice, and our bikes were flying, they were brilliant. The Yamahas handled well, they did everything right. It was the bike to have, and we didn't think old Joey would smoke us that day, and he did.
It's funny, we were talking to John about being inside the Honda team, and you were obviously inside the Yamaha team, and like you said there, all honesty, David's probably biggest competition you maybe seen as yourself, or possibly John, or whatever. So what was the feeling like leading up to that? Did your team genuinely believe that there was no chance of Joey Dunlop winning?
Oh, 100%. We didn't even consider him, and I remember me and David saying, and we all thought, David on paper was going to, be, 2 minutes in front of everyone, So I just thought if I can get a good second, and we went off for the race, and I think I got on quite well at the beginning. I think I was joint leader on the first lap, and I think I was a bit slower on the second lap. We had a bit of a, you always got a bit of a problem with it. It started overeating a bit, and so just tried to try and short shift it a bit more. But he just absolutely. I seen David's bike then parked up, and I thought, wow, who is leading then? And then I found out it was Joe when I come in the pits, and I was like, wow, and he'd I think it was 40 seconds in front of me, and he just cleared off. But it just shows you you know, how competitive he was, you know, because that race, you know, I never seen him. It was like in the senior race when I seen him. He started, I think it was number 6 on the road, I think, and I was behind him. I think I was 9, and I passed him. I thought, I won't see him, silly old sod again. Like, you know, I'll do him this time. And I was there minding my own business, and I think David was well away in the lead. And next thing, this, you know, red helmet, each yellow helmet with a red bike with the exhaust flapping around. It wasn't handling the best then either, and he come flying past. Oh no, not him again. And you know, we had a race long 3 laps we had together, and the last lap we passed each other 8 times, and it was unbelievable because we say I've been at British Championship, I was winning British Championship races, and I'd come to corners where I thought, no way is he going to stop this thing, and it was like rear wheel in the air and short circuit stuff, and places where I thought he'd be really fast, he was slow, and then some bits where I thought I'd do things at him and he'd just clear off. So it was amazing those last lap, and coming down the mountain last lap into the Craig, I thought I'll do him. The crowd was massive that day as well, and I thought he ain't going to beat me into there, and he did. He just stopped it like that, back wheel in the air and tipped it in, and we went over the line together, and I just about beat him because he had the rear wheel that high going into the nook. He couldn't get the rear wheel down, so I passed him. I think we just touched fairings going up underneath the trees and that, and over the start and finish, I just beat him. And after the race, we had this interview with the press and that, and all I seen was a pint of bitter, and he put his hand on the shoulder of me and said, "I enjoyed that." You know, and it makes you tingle now, you know, thinking about it. It was just amazing, and how he was and how humble he was as well.
It's amazing to think, like, obviously John touched on the fact you were 28-year-old and he was 48-year-old, and like people say it to me all the time now, when you go to British Championship, they honestly think that road riders don't ride hard, like you just touched on. So you'll have gone back to BSB, winning races, and boys will be saying, how on earth has a 48-year-old man just served you an absolute portion around the TT on a bike that didn't handle, and then come up and handed you a pint?
Well, exactly. And I think his style and everything suited him was so unique. He kept himself tidy as well. He didn't use much energy. He was, you know, he hardly moved on the bike. You know, I can still see him now just from side to side, and just his body was upright and his little helmet was like bouncing around. It was, you know, I can picture it now. Just separately Sulby straight, you know, going down Sulby straight. It was, you could see him trying to hold on to it, and it did bring a smile to my face.
So what was the mood like in your team? Because obviously we spoke to John. John's part of their team. He enjoyed the celebration of him winning. But for you, was everybody scratching their head saying, how has this man managed to do what he did against us?
Well, you know, we all know Joey won at the end of the day, but he just had such a bad time in practice. You know, we didn't, if he was on the right bike at the right time, yeah, my God, but through practice it was terrible, you know, and we didn't think any of the Hondas would be up there. You know, we knew the SB2 was fast, or SB1, but it was fast. It was real quick, especially Joey's bike. John's wasn't that quick, but Joey's factory bike, it was an easy match for our bikes, you know, and probably a little bit stronger out the corners. So, but he had to ride it. He didn't get given that race, you know what I mean? And I think if David would have been finished that race, like you say, on that last lap, who would have won? You know, it'd been brilliant to see. And you know, I think if David was here now, he'd probably put his money on Joey.
Yeah, unbelievable. Right. Any more questions from you, Lee Johnston?
No, I'm in awe. Like, I can see it in Michael's face, like sitting, and you can still see him on the bike and everything, and to be part of that. And I think it's a credit to Joey. We're sitting here 25 years after, and these.
Well, it's like if I'd have won the race, no one would have been bothered. So it's like,
I don't know,
you know,
mate.
but we wouldn't be. You know, it's like things happen for a reason. You know, and for what he did, like I think he did his fastest lap with me on that last lap in the senior, and the speed of him, you just till you're out there and you can't appreciate. You know, his knee on the floor. You know, and I could still see, like, he had a bit of smoke coming off the side of his boot as well. He had his real length over, and there was smoke coming off the side of the top of his boot. And I'm right behind him, I'm thinking, shit, like I'm doing the same as him. And you know, but his style was so good; it was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and it's like I've said already, it's a credit. Like the people we've had up here tonight or today and all this week are top motorbike racers, and they're all sitting in awe of this man for being a motorbike racer, but being an unbelievable person.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I think that's where we'll leave it. Michael, once again, it's a pleasure to see you again. I'm glad I saw you out on that. Well, I didn't see you out on that lap because I was doing my lap, but yeah, it was nice to be out on the circuit together with such legends as myself. Thank you very much. Right, everybody, make some noise for all our guests tonight: Michael Rutter, John McGuinness, MBE, Stephen Davison, and of course Gary Dunlop. We hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for respecting these guys. Lee, let's end the podcast there. Thank you very much, mate. Bye, Chris.
Bye.